Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And thank you to the Passle team. What a great venue. Forgive me if now and then I geek out about my Caitlin Clark moment on the side of the building over there. That's pretty cool. Sent that home, made sure my kids understood just how awesome this is. And again, I also want to thank, I have a colleague in the room, Jill Toporkowicz. She's our Chief Marketing and Business Development Officer. Our Chief Growth Officer, Susan Hollander, wasn't able to make it. But it's through this collaboration and connection that I'm here with you today, and so fortunate to be able to talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing, but also more importantly, forget about what we've been doing because we're not perfect at this either. This is all of us sort of having a discussion about, almost as if we're all having a conversation about the kinds of things that are on our minds regarding artificial intelligence in the practice of law. If it wasn't clear from the introduction, I am not an attorney. I am just a technologist. Technologist, where'd that come? Where's that accent from? I'm from Wisconsin, so Wisconsin or Wisconsin, either one works. But I'm just a technologist for the firm. I've only been working with law firms in this either consulting capacity or as a member of a firm's organization for 7 years. My background is actually in technology consulting. And for 19 years, I worked for manufacturers. So I was in-house. I was a buyer. I was a buyer and a subscriber of legal services. So I understood what it was like on the client side. And I had relationships with and built connections with my outside counsels. And then I was afforded this great opportunity as I sort of dove into ethical and responsible artificial intelligence in my career to eventually start working alongside attorneys. And what a great transformative time to work. By the way, I wander. So that's what I do. That's my thing. That's why we took the chairs away. So I had this great opportunity to work alongside attorneys as my clients, and this was before generative AI really kind of hit where it did and when it did. I've been working in ethical and responsible AI since 2017, before we were really even talking about it, at least in the US, the way that we are now. But a lot of what was happening at that time was I had startup clients that were advancing artificial intelligence into different products and services, and they were starting to ask questions like, hey, how do I do this responsibly? How do I do this ethically? So that we can continue to win and that we don't have PR issues or eventually legal issues on our side. And that's when I repartnered with attorneys that I worked with in past and said, hey, I know I can handle this as a technologist and I can explain what's going on, and I can help clients with at least this ethical question of just because we could do it that way, does that mean that we should? But what I didn't have was the expertise to understand what the could part of this was because I wasn't a lawyer. So that's what afforded me this great opportunity. And then eventually when I joined the firm, I had a great opportunity then to bring my clients along with me. So not only do I do AI strategy for the firm, and technology strategy in general, because it'd be kind of foolish for us to assume that this is only about AI. Really, it's all technology, because I think we all understand this is where this is going, that AI is just another technology. So I'm responsible for the firm's multi-year strategic technology roadmap, which of course includes AI, but I'm also available to our clients. And so this is sort of my hopping back on the bike moment of when I was a consultant years ago, because it allows me the opportunity also just to have this much tiny bit of empathy for the people that I work for inside of the firm, even though I don't have a utilization target or I don't have billables that I have to target. I at least am in the room and have this great opportunity to listen and hear what it's like, even just this little bit of empathy that I get to have. And then, of course, along the way, I get to help clients, which is pretty cool. So here's what I can say about where I think we all kind of understand, whether you consider these double-edged opportunities or otherwise. I know that it kind of felt in this sector, because typically the legal sector, being risk-averse, kind of slow to adopt, slow to move on technology. We have 5 generations working in the workplace. We have attorneys that, I don't know about you, but we have attorneys that are still using paper diaries. That's great. It's working for them. And so this kind of happened pretty quickly when you consider just like the grand scheme of things. But here's how this all unfolded. Part of the reason why artificial intelligence, and especially generative AI, came so quickly to the legal sector is because this sector was ripe for this opportunity. We had a lot of confidentiality privilege and a ton of data. So very isolated, easy places for technology to be applied to. And depending on how long your firms have been in business or how long your data retention policies are, we have mountains and mountains of data. And not only do we have mountains of data, but we had lots of repeated, routine, a lot of the same language. And depending on how long your clients have been with you, you may have a lot of just history of just that one client. So it's great opportunity, a lot of opportunity for artificial intelligence. Not necessarily structured data, which we'll get to in a moment, but certainly lots of data. But here's the double edge of this. There was no precedent for the practice for generative AI, especially in practicing law. And that's what makes it sometimes difficult for attorneys to adopt or adapt or to avoid making mistakes, because there wasn't anything else before it for us to go back and look at. And so people are still making mistakes. You've seen this still play out in the news and the headlines, that there are still attorneys. Anthropic's own attorneys made a mistake using their AI, and it made up and hallucinated cases in their own court appearance. So it's happening, and this is not unlike, I mean, if generative AI is supposed to be like the human brain, think about it this way. If any of you have kids or have kids in your life somewhere, it's not unlike the human brain, because my 9-year-old's brain, when he was 9, he's not anymore, he's 16 and a half, but a 9-year-old brain is once given more access to more data, to more technology, to more things, to more of life, to more of the world. When they turn 16 and a half, that brain, yes, you would hope is more mature, doesn't make as many mistakes, but they have access to make bigger, more risky mistakes. That's what's happening with generative AI, if you loosely follow the analogy of the human brain. So we still have the responsibility to supervise. We still have the responsibility to make sure that as more and more data and as more and more opportunities are made available to artificial intelligence, and we understand how to do that responsibly. So without a doubt, I think you all know this, right? Because you're feeling it, you're probably living it in some cases. Like, there are significant transformational opportunities when it comes to artificial intelligence, not just in the practice of law, but everywhere. Claiming and defending AI, so just the role that we may play, many of our firms and our attorneys may play in claiming and defending artificial intelligence, but we also know we have artificial intelligence opportunities inside of our business operations, working with artificial intelligence. And then in some cases, in many cases for our clients, of course, but even in some cases for our law firms, we're building products and services with artificial intelligence inside. And for those of us that were on the build versus buy journey, like, there's even just should we build this all ourselves? Like, is it worth it to build our own custom developed artificial intelligence solution? Or are we gonna piece things together by buying and assembling products and services with AI? And then, oh, by the way, which if I forget to mention this later, then there's also the fact that these technologies are changing so rapidly. So what we thought was this idea to build or assemble one way, within 6 months is already causing us to go, is that the way we want to do this now? So we gotta get on this iteration train, right? And the problem with the iteration train is that doesn't always work in a sector where you either win or you lose in the practice of law. You're either right or you're wrong in the practice of law. So we know that there's this constant balance of just that perception of, and how especially the humans that we're supporting inside of our law firms are adopting and adapting these technologies. Now, even if this is not exactly today's AI journey for a law firm, this is today's AI journey, certainly for our clients. When we're talking with our business organizations, really with any of our organizations that we support and our clients, today's AI journey used to start with, are you going to block ChatGPT yet or not? Right? We're past that. That was so 2023, right? This is starting with when we're consulting with our clients and when we're advising them, we're saying, listen, you need to map all the existing use cases of AI, because you need to assume people are already using it. And if you as a GC or you as a technologist, remember that whatever leaders we're talking to with our clients, haven't done that yet, or haven't just leaned into the fact and accepted that people are using it, we got to start there. you have to assume people are using it and then onward. Now, this can still also be the journey for a law firm, of course, because we practice and try to demonstrate what we preach. But the assumption is out there that people are using it. And so as long as our clients are already there, we have to understand how to meet them there and support them accordingly. The most important opportunities for a law firm, of course, here is to help them understand the risks and help to prioritize and help to implement or at least govern and maintain and make sure that our clients have an understanding of how to put the guardrails around it to the extent that they need to. And this varies for every client, right? Just like our businesses, our law firms, we all have a different risk profile, so too do our clients. So we have to make sure that we have an understanding of how to ebb and flow and flex with that. And in a world where we don't have a ton of AI-specific legislation, and with the world of uncertainty, at least here in the US, regarding what the future of even the AI legislation that was put in place by the states, all this is still in flux. Meanwhile, we have global companies, and some of you are also global law firms that support clients in the EU. We know that the EU AI Act is in place and enforceable. So it's a lot of balancing act. Now, I mentioned earlier that one of the great opportunities I have is to be in the room with clients and to work with clients. And these were the kinds of things I was hearing even before generative AI, when we were having conversations with clients. In fact, when I mentioned earlier that I was in-house for 19 years working for mostly Midwest manufacturers, global manufacturers, I would hear my inside counsel talk to our outside counsel saying these things. And I didn't even at that time have the great appreciation for this one, my favorite. I need a light touch on this one. That was my favorite one. I learned that by listening to him. And that was well before I if you will, flipped to the other side and started working for law firms. But I had a ton of empathy then for both sides of this, because we all understand these things. This all comes down to, and this was, like I said, before generative AI. This was before we were really even talking about AI. It was certainly before vendors and suppliers were selling artificial intelligence in-house to our clients. We'll get to that in a moment as well. And this is exactly what artificial intelligence is positioned to do for them and for us. It's intended to simplify. It's intended to speed things up. It's intended to lower the fees and the time spent. It's intended to reduce administrative burden. They just didn't know then that the possibility of what artificial intelligence and what these technologies, and how quickly they became available to us now. So we're starting to get letters that have 2 sentences in them. Maybe some of you have something similar. We encourage you, this is from clients, we encourage you to use AI tools for us in a way that respects the ethical rules, ABA ethical rules and obligations. And second sentence, we encourage you to lower your fees, right? I just was checking my email this morning, and we've gotten our 5th letter in less than a year from a large client, be considered a very large client. 5th letter regarding artificial intelligence. This time the letter, whereas before the letter was, the first letter was, we're banning your use of artificial intelligence and you need to talk to us first. The second letter was, we're willing to allow you to use artificial intelligence, but you need to get our consent first. The third letter was, we're going to pre-consent that you can use Microsoft Copilot, and there was another one, I don't remember the other one. But we're going to give you pre-consent that you can use these things, and then if you're going to use any other tools, you're going to have to let us know. The fourth letter was make sure something regarding their right to their right to the audit of the data. And the 5th one that we just got today is more of like a survey style, because they want to know all the other AI technologies that we're starting to use as a firm. Because they want information from us, because they trust us. I remember being in-house going, if our law firms are doing it, and what are they doing and what are they seeing, then we should trust that, that we can start adopting, or that we can start looking at this differently. So, this is playing out on a pretty regular basis. Even if you're personally not getting those letters, certainly the GCs of your firms and or the technology leaders are in some way, shape, or form, including making sure that we can give assurances to clients that their data is protected. That's the number one, concern. So meanwhile, we've got 4 forces, at least 4, pulling in opposite directions everywhere across our the practice of law. We've got associates who are coming out of law school that are starting to use artificial intelligence in law school and starting to use these technologies alongside, and they dream of this new lifestyle of practice where maybe we can reduce the burnout. Maybe we have opportunities to not to look at this profession differently. They're also, just like everybody else, is confused and a little bit afraid regarding the future of the practice of law. How many lawyers are there going to be? How many associates are you going to need when technology is here? We've got partners sometimes pulling in opposite directions, and these, of course, are broad sweeping generalizations, but they want to retain existing and grow new profitable revenue, and they want to make sure that we've got a sustained business model in our firms. Sometimes these can be pulling in opposite directions, right? We've got clients that want to drive down costs, like I said earlier. So they're explicitly sending these letters to say, we want to see that your fees and your costs are going to be adjusted accordingly. And then we have vendors, of course, if there's any vendors in the room. This is not offensive, you know this. We've got vendors that are charging premium rates, and they're also undercutting us because they're selling direct to in-house. The same technologies that we're subscribing to in law firms are being sold to in-house counsels as well. So everybody's pulling in opposite directions, and again, by the way, if I sound a little preachy sometimes, I'm not yelling at you. I have to give this same talk as a middle school boys basketball coach. This is not my angry voice. This is my I believe in you voice. So that's why it's coming out that way. It's not anger. But how might we make the pie bigger for all instead of just taking our own slice? All 4 of those, I'm going to go back and test the back button. Guys in the back. There it goes. All right. All 4 of those, how do we, and it's not going to be perfect every single time, but how do we make this pie bigger instead of just each of these parties grabbing their own slice? And there are ways to do this. I just realized as I'm saying this, that's the reason for the pause. I did not include this as a takeaway, but there are ways to do this with vendors and suppliers as well. Because it's either allow them to do what they're doing, which is selling the same technologies in-house and then undercutting and putting our business or our relationships with the clients at risk, or it's join them. Or it's figure out a way that you can go together to that client instead of each of us going separately. Okay, so let's start with some of these takeaways then based on all of that sort of background. So one of the first things that we on a regular basis need to be talking about in really any sector. We talk about this with our clients, but again, because we practice what we preach and teach, we want to make sure that we're doing this with ourselves as well. And this is a constant. This is not a one-time. This is not a set it and forget it conversation. This is a conversation that has to be revisited on a regular basis. What can be automated by AI? What can be augmented by AI? And what is human only? And we all, within our various areas, remember this whole talk is about differentiating ourselves in a world where we all basically have access to the same technology as law firms, right? And as practitioners for our attorneys. So we got to focus on being great at those human skills, and that's how we're going to differentiate either ourselves, our firms, our organizations. Even as I'm thinking about talking about, I mentioned my kid is 16 and a half. He's going to be a junior next year in high school. He right now, he aspires to be an attorney. Not just because I work for a law firm, but because he has mentors around him in his life that are attorneys, and he likes the concept, and he is thinking about that. Now, it's still early in his career, but I would want for him to understand this future, and I would want him, to understand what does his future look like as a lawyer someday. Well, this is the constant conversation that we're going to be having, whether he likes it or not. All right, So we mentioned the ethical rules. We mentioned, of course, that that's what clients are expecting that we're doing, is that we're using artificial intelligence or any technology responsibly according to ethical rules. In July of 2024, the ABA issued an opinion regarding generative AI. And I'm not a general counsel, but I work very closely with our general counsel. And the way that we approach this is, the way Michael Best approaches this, certainly each of your firms is going to look at this differently, is that it is just that. It is only an opinion. Thus far, the ABA has not changed its ethical rules as a result of generative AI. They, like many organizations and like the federal government or many of the federal agencies, everybody's waiting this out to see what they really do need to change and adjust for. Meanwhile, like we said, people are still making mistakes. They're not checking their work. They're not supervising it. So they're making supervisory mistakes. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the expectation of supervisory capacity inside of the current ABA rules have to change. We just have to remind people that the existing ABA rules apply. So standard rules apply. Certainly the situation that we're in with artificial intelligence is, regardless of what measures and controls we put in place to ensure that we're following the rules before, artificial intelligence simply makes it easier to travel down some riskier paths. So then we just had to make sure that we're reminding, training, and that people are not just phoning it in on this, because that's what the technology tells it to do. Speaking of technology, we also have to remember, and part of one of those ethical rules is to understand two things. One, how technology works as a practicing attorney and be able to explain it. Second is if technology should be used for this client because it would be a better way to represent or to serve that client, you're expected to use it. So you've got, again, a kind of a double edge. You're expected to use it and you're expected to explain it. So that's incumbent upon us to be able to do that. But we also have to remember that, for the last, couple of decades now, technology has not been perfectly on this straight line. It's constantly iterating and changing on a regular basis. So if any of us in this room expect that the technology is going to be perfect when it's launched, that doesn't exist anymore. In fact, when it comes to SaaS or subscription technologies, which is pretty much where more than 90% of the market is right now, the general market subscription is that if it meets 70% of your needs, you subscribe. Because you're not going to find something that meets 100% of your needs unless you bring it all in-house or you highly customize and spend a ton of money on that. 70%. That does not always play out well with audiences that are used to or that believe that technology is 100% perfect, meets 100% of their needs before you make your investment, before you go. So it's understanding and appreciating how technology works, and then simultaneous to that, we have humans that are on an adoption curve that resembles like the 7 stages of grief. Oh my gosh, I failed, or it's changing so often. Our firm has adopted what we refer to as a best of each approach when it comes to artificial intelligence. I do not yet believe, we can debate this, happily have discussion during breaks, but we do not believe, I have not seen yet, a one-size-fits-all artificial intelligence that meets all of the needs, even 70%, used my own, even 70% of the needs that all of our areas of law have. We have some very niche areas of law that benefit better from a best-of-breed, narrow, niche artificial intelligence than attempting to do something that is being advertised as a something for all. So we have 18 AI applications right now, 24 on my radar on a regular basis, another 24 on my radar on a regular basis to make sure that we're continuously evaluating, but 18 that are sanctioned for use across the firm. And again, this depends on if practitioners are using it or if marketing BD are using it, but 18 applications. So you can imagine that if at any point when we decide not to renew one of those subscriptions, we got to move 25 people to something else, that's going to be a difficult change conversation, especially, bless you. Was that a sneeze? It looked like it. Okay, you're good. All right. It's very quiet. That's not how I sneeze. But especially if you've embedded these tools into a practice. And again, if we're talking about an attorney profile that is not used to this constant change, that can be difficult. So we're aware of that. These are all things that we have to balance when we talk through and when we think about what the strategy looks like. So generally speaking, though, what we're finding is that in time, what this is allowing us to do, and this is not just from AI, this is all of the technologies that we've invested in, is that in time, as we build up resilience to understanding and willingness and growth mindset for change, and simultaneously we have to break down some of that resistance. So 3 more questions. So earlier it was, sort of the what. The what is what makes you, or what you can augment, what needs to be human only. So then there's also this how and kind of getting to that secret sauce. And I know this room gets this probably better than anybody. What makes us unique? What makes us awesome? And how do we excel? And the best way to answer this is with as much data as we possibly can. Because if you can't articulate it with data, then neither will artificial intelligence. So when you're trying to get predictive, when we're trying to understand, like, where should we go? When should we go? Who should we go with? And how do we get there in terms of generating, this awesome work product for clients? The best way to do that is to be able to articulate that in ones and zeros, bits and bytes, so that artificial intelligence can read that, artificial intelligence can predict that, artificial intelligence can help you draft that. If we're still sitting with just gut reactions in answering all of these things, that's not going to translate well into artificial intelligence. And here's the crazy thing. You can also use artificial intelligence to help you do this. So it's using the AI to help the AI figure out what does make us unique, what makes us awesome, and how do we excel. You can take artificial intelligence and apply it on your massive gold mines of data and have it generate what it thinks those insights are and keep building on that. So this isn't even something where you have to all get in a room and do this, if that sounds painful or if you don't think that will work. You can also use technology to help you get there. And then once you have that, use data to drive what we're selling and win. I don't know if you guys know this old adage, but where do you build your own coffee shop? If you're going to have your own branded coffee shop, where do you build a coffee shop today? Anybody know this old adage? Old. I don't know. Huh? Yeah, next to Starbucks. You either be Starbucks because you can, or you go build where they did because you know that Starbucks does not build a Starbucks on a whim just because a corner's open. They're using data. Okay? So what does our version of that sound like or look like when it comes to, like, where are we going and when, and how quickly are we measuring the mean time to deploying a team? Think about this. When we have to change so quickly to what's happening in the market, and when we see opportunities, how quickly what's our mean time to, like, assemble the team? It's great that we all have, areas of law and practices. We have to do that. That's the right way to organize humans in a law firm. But it's not necessarily the right way to go to, as we know, business for a client, especially in a scenario where the client has access to do some of this technology, with access to the technology, do some of this work and start cutting out the base of that foundation. It only heightens the necessity for that expertise from multiple places in our firms. So how do we do that? And how do we do that efficiently? And how do we do that without just somebody's gut or, like, talking to the right person? Like, who would you put on this one? Who would we put on that one? Or my favorite, right, the sending the email around to everybody in the firm. Who has experience in X or Y, right? That's a signal that we don't have access to that stuff ourselves. And we have an opportunity to use data to get there. I used to be afraid of saying this in front of attorneys until I tried it out a couple of times. And even for the ones I was most afraid of saying in front of, I saw them go, yeah, she's not wrong. So I'm good doing this on stage now. I feel much more comfortable. Humans are great at reporting time spent. They're not great at predicting the time it's going to take to complete their work. I'm not saying everybody. It's a broad sweeping generalization. We have some very talented people that are able to do this. But on the bell curve of this profession, we've got outliers that can do this, that are really bad at it. Outliers are really good. Everybody in the middle, we're really good at reporting the actual time spent. One of the things that I find takes us time in this sector and in this business takes us time to do is when we have to think about and when we have to ask our attorneys how long is that going to take, especially because we're getting pressure. We're all getting pressure to do alternative fees arrangements and to look at fixed fee arrangements. And in order to build those pricing models, we still have to ask, well, how much time do you think it's going to take you to do this? Meanwhile, it's highly likely, especially because of the way that our clients expect that we've got this expertise, it's highly likely we've done this 50 times before. We're sitting on the data that says we did this body of work or something very close to it. I understand everything has to be unique, tailored for clients in some cases, but generally speaking, we're sitting on the data that says we've done this 50 times before. So why are we trying to ask people who are humans who are not good at predicting their time to tell us how much time they're going to spend? Also remember, these are the same humans that are measured in a certain way regarding their time. So let's use the data and come up with, if anything, more of a validation conversation instead of an absolute conversation of building up from the ground up. There are ways to do that, and we are sitting on mountains of data to be able to do that. I mentioned gold mines of data before. Our gold mines are at least 3 places. Wherever all those documents are, our document management system is a massive gold mine. This is a differentiator. Remember earlier I said, listen, we all have access to the same technology. So what is it that really is the secret sauce? The secret sauce is that the talent has developed some really awesome stuff that's in that document management system. And we all know not everybody files everything in the document management system, so there's a lot of gold inside of our email. A lot of gold in terms of how we interact with our clients, how we talk with them. Forget about the what. Maybe you guys are really good at putting the what. Maybe we're all really good at putting the what in the document management system. But how it feels, the way we talk with a client, the human skills that I mentioned earlier are embedded in other places. It's in those meeting transcripts. It's in the conversations. It's in the tacit knowledge, and it's in the way and the words that we use in our emails and our conversations. And, of course, in our CRM. Some version of our CRM where there's a client contact system only, client contact database, or if it's also true relationship management databases. Gold mines. Got to mine those. All right, everybody, just a little bit. Take a break. Everybody, take a deep breath in. Can you smell this slide right now? Breathe in through your nose and out. Okay, what's that smell like? Yeah, it smells like New York City. That's good. That's good. That's good. It's been beautiful, though. This weather's great. One thing we have to, obviously we have to, the elephant in the room is if we don't have good data, and if we don't have clean data, if we don't have smart data, all we're really doing is just amplifying this trash when we apply artificial intelligence. And I don't mean mistakes type of bad data. I mean just like there's a lot in there. Remember earlier, that was why this was such a ripe sector, was because all the technology companies knew that this was a place to go. So we do have to make sure that we're identifying which data is the best data and mask the other stuff. By the way, if anything I say today makes you feel uncomfortable, sorry, not sorry, because some of this is also we have to feel a little bit uncomfortable about some of this. And so one more thing that I'll say that might make us feel uncomfortable is not every single document is the best work. It's good work. Not necessarily, it doesn't all have to be fed to the artificial intelligence. You actually don't need your entire document management system or your entire document history in order for artificial intelligence to help you. We have very good authors. Many of you who have litigation practices will know who those really good authors are, the good writers, And that's a lot of tacit knowledge that they built up over time. So how do we harness that? How do we make sure that the attorneys of the future, the litigators of the future, can also be and can sustain the secret sauce that your firm has because Paul is a great writer? How do we harness that? You know, 'cause Paul's not going to be practicing forever, but we want to make sure that Paul's clients, who should be around forever, and or new clients or opportunities in terms of how we brand and differentiate ourselves, can trust that we're still going to have that kind of capability in the firm. This is where our paraprofessionals are going to be very valuable. If you have not already thought this through, start thinking about how can we deploy paraprofessionals, assistants, knowledge management people, research people, records management, and so on. A lot of those support staff members who are, let's just, again, doors are closed, let's just be honest with you, they're worried about their future. So build a future for them. And this is the step to building a future for them. Have them use the technology, train others, build playbooks. A lot of this technology, especially the drafting AI technologies that are available to us, either require or are best used if you have a playbook that artificial intelligence is using as its reference point. Well, that takes time. And how do you incentivize attorneys who you want them billing on the actual work for clients to also take a bit of a break from that work and spend hours building a playbook for that client? Or how might we charge for and price to that client? Not only will our attorneys give you all the awesome work that they do, but they're also going to build your playbook. But that's going to cost you. We don't do this stuff for free, but once we do that, then we have a playbook that we get to share. Because by the way, they're also, remember what we said earlier, using these technologies in-house. So why don't we all use the same playbook then? Okay? So this is how that pie gets bigger, rather than just taking our own slice. I often hear from business development people, across all the public speaking and other firms that I talk to as well. Look, if you have some humans that are not great at business development, and whether you're trying to invest in their business development skills and trying to train them or otherwise, it might not happen. So find ways for artificial intelligence to help augment them. We know that Passle's capable of that. We know that our various social media platforms, we know our marketing and drafting utilities and technologies, whether artificial intelligence or not, by the way. This is not just artificial intelligence hammer looking for a nail. There are all kinds of ways that we can do this. But again, augment them with these technologies so they can continue to focus on being great at what they do. And now more than ever, these technologies are available. Speaking of that, if you're not already using drafting capabilities in your proposals and in your proposal writing, these are great opportunities to do so. But I don't mean just the obvious, go draft a proposal like the previous proposal, but I'm talking about even some of those things, like I said earlier, where we can focus on the human skills and being great at the human skills. I've noticed, back to the point where clients are saying those various things when their voices are coming out and the words that they're using. Start working those words in, and artificial intelligence can help you with this. Load the transcripts in from the calls. Load the emails in that were exchanged regarding that proposal. When we start using the words the client are using themselves and parrot those words back to them, that's what's going to differentiate a proposal from somebody else's. Because then it's not just puking out the RFP and responses, but it's empathetic. It says, I'm listening. We heard you because you use these words. Before we had access to such powerful and easy to use technology, people were trying to take copious notes, and then you'd all get on a call and you'd say, well, I heard the client say this. Well, I heard the client say that. Hey, why don't we just load the transcript of the call? Now we know exactly what the client said, and then ask artificial intelligence to say, listen, here's how I normally draft a proposal to respond to this. Now I'd like you to consider the client's words. The client is speaker number 1 in this transcript. Please adjust or suggest places where we could sound more empathetic to the client. Subtle things that we can do to differentiate ourselves in how we go to market. Another thing that's not so subtle, building or buying with clients instead of competing against them. Like I said earlier, they are investing in these technologies as well, so let's just embrace the fact that they have access to artificial intelligence, and let's start building alongside them instead of waiting for them to send us what their AI can't do. Because that's exactly how this market is going, and we're going to be, losing our revenue, losing our opportunities with our clients is because they're going to be keeping more of this in-house. Our managing partner said to us the other day, do you all know what the fastest growing legal sector is right now? Area of law. Anybody want to guess? Fastest growing area of law right now. No guesses? I know, it's like, well, I don't want to sound like an idiot. She's setting me up. Fastest growing legal sector right now, in-house legal practice. That should scare us. Because that means, again, we've got more staying in-house, less going out. Reimagining work. There's an opportunity to reimagine work so that the output is fully integrated now with the systems that clients are investing in. Whereas before they didn't have access to these technologies, now they do. They're using them. They're busting up their contracts into component parts, putting it in databases. So why are we delivering it in PDFs? If we're working alongside, we're making that pie bigger. What if we're all working together in the same system? And oh, by the way, shouldn't need a dashboard then, because we're all working in the same system. So it's cutting down also our need to do the administrative burden around that. And the last thing I'll leave us with, and this is not just, I wish, not wish, I don't wish this, that this is something we thought of. I'm glad that we weren't the only ones to think of this. This is something that we're hearing from a lot of pundits and a lot of people out there that are warning us in a sector, do not sell time anymore. You need to start selling outcomes. And that means we need to start incentivizing people differently. I don't know all the answers to this. Michael Best hasn't figured out all the answers to this. We're all working alongside, understanding that this has to go beyond selling time. Because, like I said, we're already getting letters from our clients that are saying, we expect that while you're using these technologies, that time is going to change. All right, I have, according to this clock, 5 minutes left. I'm sure that started a little bit late, but I'm going by this 5-minute clock. So, time for questions. Oh, sorry, he needs a mic. My bad.
I'm coming.
You mentioned human talent as leveraging it. There was a piece. What were you referring to specifically with that?
Remind me, which slide was it? Do you remember? Human talent. I'm sure. Did I mean? I'm sure. Was it maybe when I was saying that we need to? There's the augmenting with, right? There's the what can be fully automated by AI, what can be augmented, and then what are human-only types of tasks. Okay, so it's having that conversation to say there are certain things. Litigation is a great example. So long as humans still have to be represented by humans in a courtroom, we know there was an experiment that we tried with an AI lawyer, right? But so long as humans need to be represented by humans in a courtroom, when it comes to preparing for whether you actually end up in court or not because of all the various things that can happen before you even enter a courtroom, that's a great example of that is a human skill that until it's allowed that artificial intelligence can represent, focus on being great at that. Another human skill. Currently, artificial intelligence is not great for any of the intellectual property practices in the room. Artificial intelligence is not great at reviewing drawings yet and doing the specific nuances of being able to call out where something is patentable, where it's not, or where it is violating a patent or not. It can suggest, but the final review and the nuance of being able to balance the client's risk, that is still very human only. So what I would invite you to do is think about what does in a perfect world, I would staple call it an operational or some kind of consultant, some kind of somebody that's going to just observe how you work every single day. I would staple one to everybody because I want to find out what are you doing that truly is human only and what are some of the things that we can do for automation, and then let's heighten the opportunity for those human only skills. It's not impossible to do in smaller organizations. It's more difficult to do in very large firms. Okay, I believe that was our only question that we had time for, correct?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we are up for time. However, what an amazing presentation that was. High energy, hugely interesting. So thank you very much, Sarah.